Hi everyone, it's Craig Veroni with RE/MAX Masters Realty, and this is where you live, love, own Vancouver. I am so excited to welcome you to my favorite humans in Vancouver. This is the inaugural episode, and today we are headed to the downtown east side to speak with the charming, charismatic, and incredibly caring Mark Brand at Save On Meats. So without further ado, ladies and gentlemen, Mr. Mark Brand.
Good morning. How are we doing?
Fantastic.
Good.
It is so amazing to be sitting with you and talking with you. Thank you. I know your time is incredibly valuable. In kicking off this series, I'm so happy that you're the very first one.
Thanks, man.
Because you are such a special person in this city. I know that globally you're known now for all of the work that you've been doing,
right.
But I still don't think that a lot of Vancouverites really know who Mark Brand is and what the hell he's doing.
Sure.
And what amazing things he's doing.
Right.
So I've just introduced you, but why don't you introduce yourself?
You did a great job. I don't need to. Well, I'm just drawn to look back to where we are. And so we're sitting at 43 West Hastings Street, otherwise known as Save On Meats. 1957 institution, 55, 57, depending on who you talk to, in the downtown east side around food security. And I took this place over in 2009 and hacked it into multiple different things that it does here. And what I'm called to share is we feed about 1,200 people a day out of a kitchen that's just behind this wall. And the SRO is one that's on this side of this wall and that are scattered throughout the downtown east side, and employ people with barriers to employment, so mental illness, recidivism, faced recidivism and aren't getting a second chance, who have all sorts of different typical barriers to employment, and created systems around that. And then our world famous token program happens right behind you, where if you're on the street, you carry this plastic coin that we created 4 years ago, and if somebody asks you for money because they're hungry, you hand them this token. They can come in here any time of the day or night and grab one of, I think it's 9 different sandwiches now with a vegetarian option, etc. So this is what we do. I would say is the most visual for people, especially in Vancouver. This place has become a real hub of innovation and social impact around the culinary arts, as well as what's possible with community building. And behind us, I guess over this way in Gastown, is where I started my career in 2006, opening Bonita restaurant named after my mother just here with some awesome partners. And from there opened 9 other businesses in Gastown before it became the destination that it is now, from cocktail bars to gallery and live music venue, etc. And so that's my work here in Vancouver. But for the last couple of years, I've been really on the road a lot. I teach design thinking, which is, in a nutshell, how we approach problems in a systemic way that really gets to the result of the issues and creatively, and that's been a lot of fun. I teach, and I'll be teaching this year at USC in the Doctorate of Innovation program for social impact, and I teach the Innovation Lab there. So how do we create businesses that have genuine impact and can change the way we look at the world? And then I spend a lot of my time on the road working with social impact businesses, mainly in the United States right now, that are trying to scale and trying to figure out what their role in the world is. So I do that from stages to kitchens and hosting events. We just finished doing Sundance and Silicon Slopes in Utah, which was super fun. I've never been to Utah before. It was really rad. And just this last year in November, December, I got the great honor to be the executive chef at the Laudato Si Challenge, a challenge put forth by Pope Francis and around climate change. And so I'll continue that for the next couple of years. And in between that, I play a lot of rap records and have a ton of fun.
Tell us exactly what led you to open Save On Meats. You'd opened a number of very successful restaurants all through Gastown. Mm-hmm. This was something very different.
Totally.
Why?
Yeah, I mean, the easy why is the people around me that I love and trust so much. So I stood across the street right over there. My story is very similar to Al Delorier's, who was the former owner, who stood across with his best friend and looked at this place and said, one day I'm going to own that building. And I stood across the street with my ex-wife, who's a very dear friend of mine, Nicole Arnett, and Alex Yusso, and we stood across there and we had a drink at the Country Music Time pub. And I was like, you know, I feel really attached and drawn to that space, because when I was battling with addiction and when I was living on Alex's couch in East Vancouver, I used to come here to eat because it's one of the only places I could afford to be. And that was a year before Bonita. And I was, you know, at a turning point, and I got to know Al pretty well, and I got to know the counter girls. So the diner used to be right where Amber's standing there, and felt this place was an incredible example of a community hub that didn't have to be aware it was a community hub. It was just a great business that welcomed everybody in and loved it. And it was iconic, right? So there's this real air of cool to it because there's not a lot of iconic venues in Vancouver. We just don't have them. And so this one was super celebrated, and Al had let people know he was retiring, and there was a huge amount of noise around it. People were like, oh no, this is like an institution, it can't close. And so I came and I spoke to Al, and a real estate gentleman wanted to take over the space. And Al said that he wouldn't sell it unless somebody took over and ran the butcher shop. So he turned down higher offers than the one that was currently on the table. And the very savvy real estate dude knew exactly how to play to my egoic and to all of those different things, and came to me and said, take over the space, take over the whole building, I'll give you a great lease. The rest would take us the entire interview, but the long story very short is the best decision I ever made in my life. Was to take this space, and the struggle that ensued and continues to ensue over the last 6 years to find balance in how you service a neighborhood intentionally and with dignity, and also balancing out a customer base that has nervousness around this area, but continues to be a global archetype. So when you say Vancouverites might not know a lot about it, it's quite funny because folks are amazed that they don't when this is a big deal in areas like San Francisco or Los Angeles, etc. So that balance is incredibly challenging and was challenging from day one, but this was supposed to happen.
Tell me, once this got launched and the international lens started focusing in on you and the innovation that you were bringing to the downtown east side, tell me some of the various things that led to. You mentioned Oprah.
Yeah. So I'll talk a little bit. So we did a reality show called Gastown Gamble on the Oprah Winfrey Network, which was just launching. So we were the juxtaposition to the Real Housewives of Vancouver. There's a production company run by an amazing woman named Louise Schwartz who had just started her own production company, and Louise was just super great and came to us and said, we're doing this show, we'd like you to do this particular thing. And it was a great run. We had 8 episodes. We shot for about 50 hours a week for almost 5 months, and it was super intense. But from that lens, we got a lot of attention from like rural Ontario and places where people watched the OWN network. And that was fun, but it also really impacted me personally because it showed me how I could potentially show up in the world if I mismanaged the attention. So my ego got away from me, a bunch of different things happened, and there was a tension between the person I was playing on television in a reality show and who I really was, and I lost track for a little while of what was important to me because we were so busy trying to keep this thing open and do the rest of the stuff that it became very challenging for me.
So how did you find your way back?
Give me 1 second. Hey Adam, how you doing, buddy? We're not open yet. Another half hour, okay? Bud? Yeah, we'll see you in a little bit. That's Adam. He sits at this bar here for like 6 hours every single day. He's Football Mike, one of my best friends' brother. He lives across the street, and this is like his place. So as soon as he sees the roller gates go up, he comes and sits at the bar and pretty much until we close. That's an incredible analogy to have happen. That's how I found my way back. I found my way back into what's important. So I had to ask myself a lot of different questions. Television and attention have a really funny way of twisting you around, and I'd forgot what we were focusing on and what we'd actually come here to do. So I did a deep dig, and the people who still had stayed around me during that time rallied, and we worked super hard to actually make the impact that we had been talking about. And yeah, the rest is kind of history. The characters and the people in my life, like the Adams, like the Mike Haggertys, like the chefs who've shown up in spades, really helped me settle back into what the purpose was that we were after.
Tell everyone a little bit about the token program, because that is an amazing thing that you guys pioneered here in Vancouver.
Certainly. Hey Riley, can you grab me a token, please? So I got asked to be a part of a focus group across the street, and there was these folks who were going to launch a currency, but the currency was, if you can imagine, a gift card. Right, so a gift card with a denomination on the front. And I went into that meeting and I was like, hey guys, there's a big problem with this is the informal economy recognizes denominations and will flip that for illicit narcotics, etc. And that was not a popular opinion in the meeting, as you can imagine. These guys have been working on this for years. I was like, the 101 is if you give somebody a Starbucks card with $20 on it, they'll flip it for $5 because their immediate need might be heroin or methamphetamines or crack cocaine. And it's not they're a bad person at all. It's that is the paramount need. And they didn't like that opinion. I actually essentially got asked to leave the meeting, and I was really heated. And we had been throwing around some ideas in the office of how we could help our community better. And I woke up and I texted my designer at the time, who also helped me create the signs in here, and I said, I need you to draw up a coin or a poker chip, and it says Save On Meats on one side, and then breakfast sandwich, and then essentially this, and then on the flip, the identifier, so no matter what language people speak, because we've got people from all over the world down here, refugees, etc., they'll know what this is. And so the other thing that I identified is so many people had come to us and said, I want to help, how can I help? And like, there's no lack of empathy, there's just a lack of a conduit to get people to actually have a conversation with folks. The thinking of the time was people are scared of the downtown east side. And I was like, I don't think they're scared at all. They come to my restaurant, it's in there. Come to all of my places, they're a block away. Nobody's scared of it, or not en masse. I just don't have a way to interact with it or to help. And so we created this thing and got roasted on one side of it, and other people were really excited about it. But it was very polarizing. And people were like, oh, well, you're taking the choice out of people's hands. Like, you're saying that they can't be trusted with money. It's like, no, not at all. What I'm actually saying is that folks who won't interact because they don't trust giving money don't have a conduit, which eventually settled with folks. And they're like, right, okay, I follow what you're saying. So I thought we'd do 2 or 3 of these things a day. And the first day we did over 120 redemptions, and we cracked, I think it's 109,000 as of this month. Yeah, 109,000 redemptions. So if you think about the 109,000 redemptions, that's 218,000 people in Vancouver that have interacted with this, from the Vancouver Police Department, Vancouver Coastal Health Outreach, grandmas and their grandsons from Surrey and all sorts of places, just really identified with this and said, oh my God, that's something I know I can do, to have a conversation with somebody, to get involved with it. In no way is this systemic change, but it's a really cool way to do a little bit of advocacy and be involved with your community. So we launched it, and people from across the country were like, how do we do this? And I was very pointed in my responses. I said, are you okay if you're a restaurateur with a gentleman who has mental illness, who maybe medicates with methamphetamines or crack cocaine, coming into your establishment? And that was my initial question to people. And they're like, whoa, bro, calm down. I was like, that's the question. That's the break point. Because if you do this, you have to be committed to it. You can't say, I'm going to kind of do it and then bail, because the community starts to rely on the transaction. You're building trust. So that scared most people away, as you can imagine. And no fault of theirs. They just, you envision this really wonderful thing, but the work that it takes to actually do it and how your business may suffer is a different thing. So we launched in San Francisco. We've launched, we're doing 3 pilot programs in Montana, starting with Bozeman. Nova Scotia has 2 different programs that actually kind of compete, which is really cool. We're working on a cool one in New York, in all the boroughs right now. So this innovation is pretty straightforward. I think it's flowery language for a plastic coin, has just created more hope and ability to interact with your community.
So tell us how you and the restaurant as a whole find that balance between being very committed to helping as much as you can the people that live in this neighborhood, and the patrons that come to your restaurant, obviously, who you rely on to keep the lights on, right, and pay your staff.
Yeah.
Has there been any pushback from customers, or what's, because you mentioned that you've tried things and you failed, and you tried and failed in this spot. Talk a little bit about the successes and the failures.
Sure. And I'll go back to your first question, or rewind it to, like, how do you find the balance? Well, I don't know. I wish somebody would tell us. Like, there's an assumption in that we figured it out, and we definitely have not. We do our best, and right behind you, as you came in, you saw a broadcast going on. We created a radio station in the front of this thing with 40 different hosts, which I'm super excited about. SaveOnRadio.com. You just click listen now, and gave a voice to this street and to this neighborhood and to all sorts of other people who've lost their voice in media, who've been fired or let go. Like, their home is here. So if anything, we found balance by creating community in a space that's available to everybody. But the struggle in that is there are only about 300,000 people downtown. There is a specific lens that Vancouver likes to look at things through. It could be called an Instagram lens at this point, where things have to be really pretty. It's avocado toast, it's lineups for Jam Cafe, it's like those sorts of things. That's where the demographic is. And that's not a negative. That's wonderful for people operating in that. My cocktail bar, The Diamond, I would say operates in that sort of sphere, right? This doesn't exist in Vancouver. It's here. So when people come from New York or from Toronto or from all these other major hubs, they're like, oh my God, why isn't this place packed? This is the truth. It's amazing. It's a real diner with real food and all of these things. I'm like, that's not the demographic we have to serve here. And that's not a slight on Vancouverites, it's just not what's popular at the moment. So it is challenging. You know, doing consistent, regular, day-to-day business is hard, and we're always sort of reinventing our menu items and working with really fun people. But the neighborhood is also a deterrent. This particular block, if you think about where Abbott Street meets Hastings, that block has developed. We are part of the conversation of this block not developing in a way that isn't inclusive. So I'm wearing two different hats, and my advocate hat is definitely stifling the business in this business, right? So it's this juxtaposition that I find myself in of wanting to be fully inclusive, but how do you be fully inclusive and also cater to the greater Vancouverites who want to understand this but don't really? And so I guess the answer is commitment. You know, we're committed to being here. We're committed to being here for the long haul. Our patrons are ferociously loyal. We built a community around us that is very, very staunch about introducing new people to us.
I'm one of those ferociously loyal patrons.
Yes, you are, dude.
I have brought many people here, and from the moment you opened, just was blown away at what you've been able to accomplish in this small little space in Vancouver. Tell us a little bit about the farm.
Yeah,
Persephone Brewing Company and how that all started.
Yeah, and it's a really good time for us to talk about that because behind this wall, we're going to be incorporating Persephone in the coming months. We're doing a tasting room in here and what we're going to call the Persephone Snug. Nice. So there'll be stuff available here that's not available anywhere else. It'll be really, really fun.
Well, shit, if that doesn't draw Vancouverites to this neighborhood, I don't know.
I'm doing what I can over here.
Craft beer.
Craft beer radio station, the Greasy Spoon. We do all kinds of fun stuff. So the farm happened and Persephone happened. The gentleman, okay, let me go back 5 steps. We'd done all these businesses, but I'd never written a business plan because they were all self-funded, right? We just funded off cash flow and different like small investors, and none of our businesses cost more than $100,000 to build, right? So we did all the work ourselves and with really cool contractors who were friends who like drank at our bars and like we knew really well, and we patchworked businesses. But this is a $2 million investment minimum. It should have been 3, and we would have done it right the first time. But I don't have access to that kind of capital, and I don't know how to do that. Back in the day, I was like, I'm not sure how we would do this. But this gentleman by the name of Ryan Smith, who worked in the neighborhood for building opportunities for business, caught wind that I was in negotiation and I had some skin in the game and a chunk of money to put down. And he came through and just committed to getting this place open. He committed. A woman by the name of Kira Gerwing, who used to work at the city, committed. She now works with Van City in the community department. Mike Collister, the building inspector, committed. You know, Van City, the Van City Foundation, the Vancouver Foundation, all these people committed to rallying around and creating this business that would service the community. So Brian and I got galvanized in that because he taught me the nuances of what a lending institution would be looking for in impact in 2009, 2010. I was like, I don't know, we can't guarantee you that part. And he's like, we can and we will. So he gave me a lot of confidence in what I was trying to do. And at the end of the project, he worked on a greenest initiatives for the city with me. We were going to try and put an apiary and chickens on the roof. Whole other hilarious story. You can't put chickens 4 stories in the air, but we gave it a shot. And then Brian came to me and said, you know, I don't know if you know this about me, but I love craft beer, paraphrasing. And I really want to open a brewery, and you're the only person I know crazy enough to dig straight in with me. And I was like, yeah, I would love to do that. And his initial thoughts were to do this in East Vancouver, and I said, no, East Vancouver is going to get overrun with breweries. Mark my words, as soon as publicans and restaurant owners are legally allowed to open breweries, East Van will be a brewing destination. Let's not get lost in the mix. Also, what is it we care about? We care about barrier employment, we care about agriculture, we care about the full system. Let's find something that means something to us. And you're from Gibson, so let's go over there. And we went to look at a couple of rental spaces, but we stopped. So when you go to Gibson's, you get off the ferry and you go up, and you turn left, and there's a stop sign. We did that. I'd never been to Gibson's before, and I'm looking at this big red barn, this gorgeous farm. I was like, can we go there? And he said, no, keep your eye on the prize. We got 2 things to look at. I was like, I'm only going to those appointments if you take me back here. So we come back after our appointments, a very disappointing look at a couple of rentals, and I met the owner, the past owner of that farm, and he's just a wonderful human being. And he was there with his grandson. It was like straight out of a movie, tinkering on this old 1960s tractor. And I was like, this is our place. So I had this table over here. I had them down for discussions about their interest in selling the farm. They saw our impact in community and what we wanted to do. And we had a very favorable negotiation and purchased 11 acres and all of the existing farm equipment and created Persephone on the Sunshine Coast. Coming on to, it'll be 6 years ago this summer. Then the farm employs people through an agency called Sunshine Coast Association for Community Living, or SCAC, with developmental disabilities. It's a community hub for people. People get married there. People play their accordions there. We grow 7 acres of hops. We have an apiary, root vegetables, greenhouses, small business. It's paradise. You know, it's really, for me, it was like conceptually the coast version of this. If this is what happens in an urban sector to do that work, Persephone is what happens in a rural sector to do that work. There's more sprawl and there's more ability to impact the system. So I'm totally and utterly in love with that business at all times. And it's really been able to do some great stuff. We just changed agricultural law in the province to be able to allow more of this stuff to happen. We were threatened with an eviction a couple years ago by the province.
I remember that.
Yeah, so we won that battle due to really great leadership and people understanding, you know, that this is the wave of the future. We can save agricultural land through creating important small business to help facilitate that. And Persephone got to lead that conversation. And I'm super proud of Brian and the team around that. Yeah, so that's the farm in a nutshell. And it's heaven. Like when people talk to me about going there, their whole body shifts down. They're like, oh man, Persephone's so great. And they don't mean the beer, although they mean the beer, they mean the space, you know, and it's just like this, it's a big hug. Like, welcome to the business, please enjoy it, that's why we made it.
What is next for you?
Lots of stuff. Lots of stuff. I mean, the most exciting thing that's next for me is I've been working on a project for 3 years called PAL, P-A-L, or Positive Access Link. It's a digital tool to get us all connected. So imagine if this was digital, as like a one frame. Imagine if with all of the services that we have in North America for people who are in poverty, et cetera, imagine if people knew how to actually navigate them. Imagine if they could get to them and understand them. Imagine if the people who are working in them could feel more valued because they were servicing the people they were trying to connect to. Imagine if we just had a clearer vision of what homelessness actually looks like. What we do right now, and it's embarrassing, we do this across America. On the coldest night of the year, global warming's decided we don't have one of those, but on the coldest night of the year, we get together with a bunch of volunteers and we go out into the streets, into the shelters, and we do this. And that's how we figure out how many homeless people are. It's called a point in time count, and it's been the way we do things for a long time. It's the best method we have. It's 2018. You know, we need to actually understand the populations. We count, we're like, we have 3,472 homeless people. Imagine all the flaws in that. We bring our bias, we don't understand. You're getting people who are not well versed in this. People are in shelter, maybe. They live in cars, they live on couches. Poverty is the biggest challenge we are facing socially right now. It's going to change the face of our society if we don't address it. So this project that I've been working on has taken me to Stanford. I was there for a year as a civic innovation fellow at the design school, at the D School. It's taken me all over the world, and my research amongst it has allowed me to interview over 100 people who are facing homelessness and street entrenchment, but not in this neighborhood. So I'm not identifiable outside of it. And my excitement around it, as you probably tell, my whole body shifts when I talk about it, is that I think we've got a really, really good shot at identifying the issues together. Every solution that we've looked at so far on a large scale is like a coffee bottom. Like, oh, here's the people who have a problem, let's just impose this. My idea was to flip it upside down and have the people who are actually facing poverty inform the decisions. What if every single person had a real voice in this? And so I know that sounds kind of abstract, but I'm being mindful of it being so. But we're in development with a team of the back-end data collection, of the front-end UX and application. I'm hoping to be running a pilot in the near future. And I think that from the research that I've done, specifically with the people who are facing marginalization, because this is who it's being built for, it's not being built for us, is that we've got a real shot at chipping away at this problem in a meaningful way.
What is your advice to the people who are going to be viewing this video, or just come across Mark Brand at a later date, come across some of the things that you do here at Persephone and other places, perhaps when PALS gets launched, right? They come across who you are, what you're trying to do, because a moment ago you said that the only way we're going to tackle this problem and really make a significant dent to it is together.
Yeah, totally.
Right? How do we do that?
So,
how do people, what's your advice to people who want to get involved, who want to help, and maybe are afraid to come down and have a conversation with someone? What is your advice to those people?
Yeah, I mean, the easiest advice that I give to people, and I'll use an analogy. Let's use this building as an analogy, actually. So I get 9 or 10 emails a week. And you're like, hey, I want to come help you. I'm going to come down and cook. And our immediate response is, do you know how to cook?
Wouldn't that be the first? Yeah.
And 9 times out of 10, people are like, no, but that's what you need, right? Like, no, that's not what we need. I don't need you to come down so I can teach you how not to burn soup. Like, it's not helpful for anybody for you to do that. What's helpful is for you to use your genius and your skill set that you're confident in to do something. So what Pal will also do, but in the interim, what you should do is, if you're a lawyer, if you're a UX designer, if you're an accountant, if you're a basketball coach, if you're any of those things, all of those skills are needed in social impact. So what you need to identify is also what rises for you, what gives you energy, what makes you excited. And if that's the SPCA, it's the SPCA. If it's homelessness, fine. If it's youth in sport, great. Do some research, figure out the organizations and what they're looking like. Be super respectful and mindful that they're working with like very limited resources. So you call and be like, I don't know what I want to do, is not helpful. You saying, hey, I'm a lawyer. I would love to give you 4 to 6 hours a month of legal work pro bono. How can I help you? Is tremendously, tremendously helpful. And being able to share that gift will allow you to keep going back. If you come down here and you burn soup in my kitchen, that's not a good feeling for you. You feel like crap, like, and I don't need your help. But if you come down and do that, you're not going to go back to volunteering because you have a negative experience with it. I want you to go and have a positive experience with whatever it is that you're sharing. Whatever it is that you have as a gift, do that. Don't try and learn something new unless you really want to, but don't try and use a prototype as a social impact, reach out. Do something that you really care about and that you're great at, because that is your gift to the world, period. And I think that people are like, is it though? I don't know. It is. Be definitive in yourself that you're a great singing instructor, a piano teacher, that you're an incredible dance instructor, that you want to do free yoga classes for people. Like those things that you can offer, commit to, and go do it. And it'll help you 360. It'll help you in your business, it'll help you in your personal life, it'll help you in all of those things because it relieves the tension we all feel because we're empaths. We're built, our body and our mind is built to be empathetic. When we see stuff like this happening, if we don't do something about it, it makes us angry. It's why the world is in the state that it's in, why we're on such high alert, why the tension is so high is because the world's a fucked up place right now. And if you're doing something to fix it, your shoulders drop. And your shoulders drop a little more and you become a little more slow and compassionate in what you're doing because you know you're part of the solution. And that's why these people all come to work. I got some of the best staff in the city, and trust, they do not make as much money as they would at a chain. And that's what you can do. Get out there, get amongst it. We have tons of opportunities that aren't cooking soup with the Better Life Foundation with our charity. Reach out, look at betterlifefoundation.com. Come down to one of our Greasy Spoon diners and be a diner. Come have one of the best meals of your life once a month. I mean, the series is incredible. We're doing all chefs that happen to be female this year. That feeds 500,000 people a year. If your gift is that you want to come and be social and build your business and hang out, then grab one of these tables once a month and hang out. That's helpful. But not doing anything, it just doesn't serve you, and it doesn't serve your community and it doesn't serve your being. So do something.
I want to thank you so much for joining me in this very first episode of My Favorite Humans in Vancouver. It's easy to see why Mark Brand was my first choice to kick off this incredible series. As he said, we are all in this together and we can get through this together. And it doesn't matter what you want to do, but do something to help out the people in this city and in your community. This is a phenomenal city. It's no wonder people want to come and live here. And I want to help celebrate the city and the people, the amazing people and human beings in this city. So thank you for joining me. And if you haven't been to Save on Meats in a while or ever, doesn't matter if you live on the North Shore or the West Side, head on down there, grab a meal, and help Mark support the people in that community the way he's been doing and will continue to do so. It'll make you feel incredibly proud, and I will feel incredibly proud of you for doing so. Until next time, remember, this is where you live, love, own Vancouver. Have a great day.